Hello everyone, Lore Master of Sotek here, back with another lore build battle for you guys. This time going based on another request from Twitter. Someone wanted to see Settra the Imperishable. So of course we've got the High King of Nehekara himself on the Chariot of the Gods, as he should be. I also have a Tomb Prince on a Chariot, fighting next to him, providing Guardian, and kind of being a stand-in for his legendary Guardian, Nakaf, who is a Tomb Herald in the tabletop, which Tomb Heralds in Total War Warhammer are a banner thing that you can get through your tech tree, at the end of your tech tree. But that's what that Prince will be standing in for. Then I've got 2 units of regular Tomb Chariots, because if you're going to run Settra, you got to go with his legendary Chariot Legions. Making up the rest of my army, I've got 2 units of these Ushabti with great bows to provide me with some range support so that my army can just run into battle while they try and pick off stuff from the distance. Then I've got 2 units of Tombguard with halberds, 2 units of Skeleton Spearmen, one of which is King Nikesh's Scorpion Legion with their poisoned attacks. And then in the front line, we've got a unit of Tombguard, and then on the flanks, 2 units of Skeleton Warriors to make sure that we can get to our Realm of Souls proc. And that pretty much does it for this army. So, very combat heavy, does have a notable ranged element with the chariots, but pretty good amount of elite infantry, especially for Tomb Kings. Meanwhile, my opponent is running a Dark Elf Legion here in the snowy north. You can see it's a Dark Elf encampment that for whatever reason Settra has decided has to go. So sneakily, my opponent has the Crows of Cain up here in the forest, one of the new Regiment of Renowned units, and they're actually going to be quite a problematic little bunch. Then he's got 2 units of Dread Spears, 2 units of Bleak Swords, 3 units of Dark Shards with shields, a unit of Blackguard, the Sisters of Singing Doom, a Sorceress on Dark Pegasus with the Lore of Death, and then Malice Darkblade with his Zarkan abilities. So without further ado, oh, of course, and then 2 Scourge Runner Chariots on the flank. So let's get into it. So already my Ushabti with great bows are focusing down the chariots, so we're already trading fire. And I've basically got one on each side. My Ushabti should be able to win that engagement pretty easy, even if they commit into melee against me. So I wasn't too worried about babysitting them, but I did not notice the Crows of Cain, which is going to be very apparent in a moment. So here, I'm letting my all of my infantry trample all over the Dark Elf camp and clear a path for me. Because if there's one thing I learned trying to play this army, it's that for Tomb King chariots, especially when you're running this many of them, it's good to let your infantry start the fight and then charge in with everything afterwards. So here I start popping buffs, I wait for my guys to reach the front line, and then the chariots just come smashing through. So in comes Malice, but he is no match for Settra the Imperishable. I am popping all the buffs. My chariots smash at the front line and are immediately going for the crossbows in the back. Settra, I popped a Overcast, Nair's Incantation of Protection on myself, make sure I'm nice and tanky, and then the Tombguard are piling in. As you can see, the middle of the Dark Elf army just got evaporated by that charge. By this point, the Crows of Cain have started to engage on me in the back, but you can see Malice is pretty much dead. I did pop a Overcast. I've got the Blessed Blade of Petra, but he does manage to summon Zarkan before I'm able to take out Malice, and now he's starting to unleash his fury. But Settra ain't scared of no demon. Settra ain't scared of nothing. So now I continue to commit against him. Meanwhile, the Sorceress jumps down against my Tomb Prince and is doing her best to wipe him out to get rid of the Herald Nakaf and his Guardian ability. Across the full battlefield, I've got a good surround, though the Sisters of Singing Doom are chewing up most of my infantry pretty bad. My chariots are chasing off what units they can, trying to get rid of Dark Shards. And my halberds and spears are now piling in on Zarkan. I do pop the Curse of Joff, which the Curse of Joff does rampage units, so during that time, Malice and the Sorceress were not able to use any abilities. Here, I make sure to Overcast to protect myself again, make sure Zarkan doesn't pull any funny business. and he does summon Reaper of Souls at this point, but I'm not worried about it. He's pretty much dead, so I go ahead and disengage Settra and go after the Sorceress because I want to make sure she does not come back. Meanwhile, in the background, the Crows of Cain actually devoured one of my Ushabti Greatbow, even though I did turn them to melee, hoping they'd be able to overwhelm the Harpies, but yeah, not working too well. So at this point, Zarkan is actually holding steady because he's regenerating as fast as he's taking damage thanks to the Warp Sword of Cain. But he is going to get out of combat soon. He is occasionally taking hits from those spearmen, and he will die due to his own damage take. At this point, I do summon the Ushabti in the back to protect my Ushabti with bows, and I send in Settra to cut down the demon. So Zarkan is no more. I start pushing my way through the front line, and now enemy troops are coming in from all directions. We're actually starting to lose this large engagement over here. The Sisters of Singing Doom combo with the Blackguard, especially when the Dark Elves got their buff, really is making a big, ugly difference. But worry not, Settra has arrived to save the day, charges into these Blackguard, and calls down the power of Patra to blast through them. Meanwhile, my Chariots are doing what they can to just clean up troops across the board, and now it's just a matter of the best kind of cleanup, which is enemies are engaged, so bringing in the Chariot Legions to just run people down. And in they come, and skittish. That unit's pretty much dealt with, and at this point, the Dark Elves start to fall due to army losses, and that's the end of the match. So it actually, kind of as a fun report for those who are interested, it actually took me, so far it's taken me 3 games with yesterday's build, which was the Wurrzag army, and then today's build, which was the Settra army. It took me about 3 games with each to come out with a build that actually could achieve success. So I did play 2 other games with Settra, which, for those, I actually had skeleton archers, I had chariots with bows, and I had a big construct like a sphinx and stuff. But what I learned quickly was that, once again, you kind of have to build a little unconventional when you're taking a build based around a character, because people, of course, are going to be playing to try and counter what your faction is strong for. So many of the times I would come into a game and almost every opponent was prepared to deal with constructs. So my first game was up against a dwarf player who had like 4 units of Thunderers, 4 units of Iron Drakes with Trollhammer torpedoes, and then some Longbeards. And of course, I have not played Chariot play in a long time. And this game, my Chariots did super well. They both got a bunch of chevrons. They both got well over 100 kills. Because I timed their charge correctly. You know, I made sure that all of my infantry, my entire army was engaged, and then my chariots hit immediately afterwards. So I didn't have to worry about my opponent being braced, and because he was already locked in combat, I was able to just punch straight through, and my chariots were able to get into the cookie jar of the dark shards and rip them all up, so none of them got any kills. You know, they only got 886, though they did do a lot of damage to my Tomb Prince before I was able to take them offline. Though Nakaf did survive, just barely. But, you know, against the dwarf player, I tried to send my chariots, like, far around the flank, and because of that, by the time my chariots got to the front line, the dwarf player had managed to dictate the front line being too far away from his back line, so my chariots couldn't support the front line while also going after the back line at the same time. And then the second game I played, I had a very similar issue, where at that time I was like, okay, maybe I'll take a cheaper monster. I'll take like a Bone Giant and, you know, chariots with archers and stuff like that. But I went up against a Skaven player who went really hard with Lord Skrull, 4 units of Rat Ogres, a Hell Pit Abomination, 2 Warp Lightning Cannons, and a Warp Fire Thrower team, which I managed to shut down a lot of stuff, and I even managed to wipe out the right flank of his army. You know, I scattered the 2 of the Rat Ogres, I knocked Skrull down to half health with Settra, but the problem was, Skrull, you can't just bully him down without, you know, a reliable way to do damage without knocking him over. So archers, or a melee infantry character, or a Death Wizard, like Archon the Black. So I didn't have those options. So Skrull kept getting knocked over by Settra, and Settra wasn't necessarily reliably doing damage. So by the time I almost had him, the Hell Pit and the other 2 Radogre units showed up to support. And by that point, because my infantry was once again so far away from my chariots, I couldn't stay engaged, and I had the horrible realization that the Radogres were faster than my chariots. So they were able to just run them all down and wipe them out. So the big lesson for the Settra video is, of course, if you're going to try and play a thematic build around Settra, you want to make sure that you max out your chariots, which are only allowed 4 chariots in an army. So these 2 characters both count as 1, and then both the units count as 1. I would highly recommend a build something like this. I might even cut down on the Tomb Guard and get more regular infantry, depending on how you want to play it. But definitely make sure your infantry engage, and then the chariots come from behind your infantry, slam into them to butter through the front line, get into the mid or back line, and then once they get to the mid or back line, you then bring them around to hit everybody in the back. And that works super well. So hope you all enjoyed this. I'll continue checking Twitter for other builds, and once we get through that little list, I'll be looking for just the most liked or upvoted or whatever builds. So hope you all enjoyed it. See you next time.